Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to be replacing the brakes, front rotors and pads on our 2004 Toyota Matrix XR. There's what she looks like right there, with new pads and rotors. The same process could probably be used, pretty much exactly the same process, on 2001 through I think 2008 or 2009 maybe, 2008 for certain, Toyota Matrix, Pontiac Vibe, and perhaps even the Toyota Corolla. A lot of these cars had the same underpinnings and shared the same parts, even the same part numbers for replacement parts. So the process is going to be identical, if not very, very similar. And the same principles are going to apply to pretty much any car that has, rotors and calipers on the front. Your bolts to remove them and position, whether it's in the front, the top, or the back of your rotor for your caliper might vary, but the principles are going to be the same. So hopefully you can get some information out of this that'll help you change your brakes too, especially if it's specific to this car. Let me show you what we're going to be putting on the car today. I think you're going to like it. Today we are going to be using the Power Stop Evolution coated rotors. These are Geomet coated rotors. I have a video on my Volvo replacement where I put these on my daughter's car. That'll tell you what that Geomet coating is. But it's a nice coating that does kind of the same job as that sacrificial rod in your water heater. This is an evolutionary coating, meaning over the course of its life, it evolves. It is a coating over the rotor as a hard coating at first to protect it from salts and things like that. As this starts to oxidize, it changes the chemical properties of the material so that the oxidation stops things from getting to the rotor surface back below. And there's another phase in there for the wearing away of the material where it also creates a barrier so that stuff isn't getting to the rotor itself. It sacrifices itself over the life of its usefulness. And by the time it's gone and it's no longer useful, the rotor's probably wore out and you need to replace it. So this will last you for years. I'm in Southwest Michigan where we use road salt in the winter, so something like this is really handy to have because I know these are going to be good for years. This, since it is a coated surface and the rotor is already protected, ships without oils on it also, so you don't have to worry about stripping those oils off with brake cleaner like on standard rotors. They're shipped with an oil surface, oiled slightly, so that they don't rust in shipping or while they're sitting on a shelf, and you have to clean that up before you put these on. I'm going to be putting the matching ceramic pads. These are really nice, beefy, thick pads. They will not generate road dust, have a really nice backing plate on them. The pads on this particular application are all identical. Comes with the lubricant, ceramic silicone lubricant, so that you can lubricate these tabs and maybe the point where the piston touches back behind. And it comes with new clips as well to help retain them. That the tabs slide in and out on the retainers. So, first thing we got to do is get this car up in the air. Always use jacks and jack stands, 2 jacks, whatever you have to do. Don't rely on just one device to hold that car up. If nothing else and you're doing this as an emergency change, get your jack up under there, take your tire off, and then slide it under the edge of the car so that if something happens and your jack collapses, it hits the wheel, sets down on that, and goes no further. Never get your feet or anything up under here. Try to stay out of the way. And eye protection is always a good thing too. So let's get this thing up in the air and we will meet you back at that point. Alrighty, as you can see, we have the tire off, the car up in the air. I've got a couple of jacks here. They're both newer jacks, so I know where they both work. I'm going to use that. I still got to shove the tire up under the edge. Before we get too far though, there's a couple of things I want to point out to you. You want the hood raised so you can check your master cylinder, your brake fluid reservoir, to see, make sure when you squeeze those pistons back into the calipers, you're not overflowing that. If you do, you just need to get like a turkey baster or something and remove a little bit of that. It is going to be really handy to have one of these. This is a brake pad compression tool, specifically for pushing that piston back in. These are like $5 or $6. They are super handy to have if you do even one brake job. It's worth the cost of it. And for your brake pads and rotors, follow the directions on the box for the break-in. All pads and rotors, especially coated ones, are going to have a break-in procedure you really need to follow. They can vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. Make sure you read and follow that break-in procedure for the best possible experience with your car and your new brakes. This one, a little bit odd. It says perform 30 accelerations from 30 mile per hour to 5 mile per hour, leaving 30 seconds in between to allow the brakes to cool down. It's snowing outside, so I don't know if I'm going to have to wait that long, but we'll do it anyway. But 30 of those with 30 seconds in between means you've got about a 15-minute break-in procedure. So find yourself a country road and where nobody's around, or just loop around the block in your neighborhood a few times, wave to your neighbors, make them let you think that you're an idiot or something, and just do this in the neighborhood. Whatever it takes, just follow the break-in procedures as close and as soon after installing these as you can. An empty parking lot where you can get up to speed, do the braking, and then just make a slow loop around the parking lot, come back, do it again. That's also another perfect location. And especially right now, if you're watching this while COVID still rages, there's a lot of empty parking lots out there, so it shouldn't be too hard to find something. So let's get to this and stop yapping our mouths, right? Alrighty, to get started on this, we've got to remove 2 bolts, one here and one here. These are the slide pins that your caliper mounts to. Those are 14 millimeter. There's 2 that you'll have to remove. And then this bracket that it all mounts to has a bolt on the top and the bottom. That's 17 millimeter that we have to remove also. When we remove this, we're going to want to set it up somewhere out of the way so that we're not pulling on the brake line there, putting stress on that, because you can actually break your brake line, and that's not a good thing. You don't want to do that. Once we remove all of this, theoretically, this rotor should just come forward. We may have to tap it a little bit to break it away from the centering ring, but should come off pretty easily. Let's find out. Okay, I'm going to try my best not to get in your guys' way when we do this. Okay, make sure that's unloosened, which means it comes this way. And that came loose very easily. And that came loose very easily also. There's one. We want to set these aside so that we don't lose them or get them dirty. And let's see what else we've got to get to. That looks like it, so we should be able to get me a screwdriver, which I don't have handy here, and kind of pry away at this and pull this loose. Hang on a sec. Alright, got me a screwdriver, and all I'm going to do is just kind of carefully set it up here. Make sure if you need to use a flashlight to make sure you're not, putting it on something you shouldn't be putting it on. but we just got to kind of get it started. Coming out of there. Just to wiggle it out. Set my flashlight down. Here we go. And we will hook. Look how that hooks so easily. Like that. Isn't that nice? Like it was designed to. Both the pads, if you'll notice, stayed right here. So I've got to remove those. And again, you may need a helping hand getting those out. Man, those things are in there, aren't they? I think they're just mainly stuck on these old clips is what it is. So there we go. Just be careful when you're doing this. If you've got to reuse these clips especially, you don't want to damage them. So just be careful with all of this. And you'll get them out. Dang, that sucker is in there good. We're going to have to wiggle these out a little bit. But like I said, just be patient, be careful. You'll get them out. So I'm going to work at that. You guys don't have to sit there and watch me do that. We're just going to be very careful and we're going to get these off. So most of the time these will come off a lot easier, but as you can see there's a lot of rust and stuff here. So, you know, it's an older vehicle and this is Michigan where we have the road salt. So you got to be aware of that kind of stuff. I'll be right back at you guys. Wow, these things were really corroded. Look at the back and tabs of these things. This one was hard to get out. I destroyed the pad getting it out, which is fine. I don't care. These had good life left on them, but I've got a pulsing when I stop, so I wanted to get rid of these and replace them with something better. I think to help get this one out, what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the bracket itself, and they will come out with the bracket. Gonna need a longer wrench for that one. Alright, got the 1/2 inch drive out with the longer ratchet. Let me break them free. A lot easier. So there's one bolt out. And there's the other one out. And there's that out entirely. And we can probably just take it and do that. Now, that's an easy way to get it out. And this was also just corroded. I mean, really bad corroded. So these retainer clips here, I'm going to pull these out and I'm going to wire brush this whole area down here since this is corroded to make the whole thing go back in a lot easier. Alright, we are back. Now one thing you're going to have to be aware of is this rotor may get stuck to this back behind, the old rotor here. In which case, if you know you're not going to be reusing this rotor and you know the new one fits, you can take a hammer, pound around it, and then hit from behind to knock that sucker off. Because, again, you're going to have corrosion build up back behind this on this bearing plate here that will stick it. A few good whacks will take care of that. Clean this area up good with a wire brush and some sandpaper, and I like to put copper anti-seize on the back of this also so it won't do that again. So we're going to take this old rotor, set it aside. I've already made sure the new one is an exact match. And I'm going to clean up this, remove the old clips here. Those just come right out, and the new ones will sit right in their place. So, but look at all the corrosion. Let me go clean all of this stuff up, and then we'll come back and start reassembling all of this. All right, I think I got everything cleaned up. I got this coated with a light coating of anti-seize copper compound. Before I go too further, I've got my caliper sitting here. I've got one of the old brake pads, and I got my brake pad compression tool. And I just sit it here so the backing plate is on these retaining pieces here. Tighten it down. It'll hold itself in place. Kind of center this thing on the piston there. And then all you've got to do is turn this, and it'll push this piston back in, and when it bottoms out, you're good. Now while I'm doing this, I want to also take the cap off of my brake pad, or my brake fluid reservoir. Okay, anyway, you take the top off of your brake fluid reservoir and you watch to make sure that you are not exceeding, pushing too much fluid back out and overflowing your reservoir. So we're just going to push this gently back in. And you can see this getting closer to that. As those brake pads wear out, that piston is going to rest further out. So you want to push it back in so when you put your new rotors and pads in, you actually got room. And you feel this when it stops, because it won't go in any further. It's pretty easy. But again, be slow, gentle with it. I just go about a quarter of a turn at a time, slowly, until it is all the way compressed, which it is almost there. And we are done. Take this out. See, and that is perfectly back. Now I can coat these surfaces here also with my stuff that came with it, or I'm just going to use the copper anti-seize because it also does a excellent job acting as a squeal preventer. And you don't need a lot of it either. So I'm going to set this back out of the way for a moment. We've got our rotor. We can set into place. We have our mount, and I did take these out. They're the little rubber ground. You want to make sure these move in and out freely and they're lubricated. The little rubber boot is in good shape. The rubber boot just comes off of right there. Just move it carefully off with your fingers, and then when you push it back in. But this allows this whole bracket to slide in and out to adjust location side to side for perfectly centering itself on the rotor. So you definitely want to make sure that is in good working order. We're just going to take our bolt. Put that in, and then I'm going to tighten that back down. All right, I got that in place. Make sure I didn't get any goop on my hands to put on the rotors or surface either. I keep wiping my hands just to make sure. Especially now as I get ready to touch these. And I'm going to put a dab of my stuff just on this ear and nowhere else. Again, I don't want much, just a dab on this. And see, I got a tiny bit on that brake pad right there. So I can wipe that off carefully. And it's on the chamfer, thankfully, so that looked like it wiped off pretty easily. Now, this could be the hardest part of the whole thing. I got to get these pushed back into these tabs, which can be a little bit more painful than it sounds. Because these clips are pretty tight. Make sure my clip itself is good. It's really hard to do. There we go. So that one is in. Let's see if we can get the, and then we just get the other side in the same way. So I'm not gonna bore you with the details of that, but I'm gonna take and put the tiny bit of lube on the tabs there, and then slide that back in over on this side. Alrighty, as you can see, the brake pads are both in there, and the astute among you will have noticed by now there's no dust backing plate here. That sucker long since disappeared on this car. Like I said, this is a 2014 or 2004 with 221,000 miles on it, so it's had a rough life and a lot of rust. So we're going to take this now, bring it back down here, slide it back into place. And you may have to turn your things here so that it slides in properly. Get one started. Okay, there's one. Let's get the other one started. And we'll tighten those suckers down. And there you have it. It is fully reassembled. Looking good. Can't see what you guys are seeing there. Hang on a sec. And there you have it. I got all the stuff tightened back down here. That's in good shape. Everything looks good there. So now all I've got to do is put my tire back on, lower it back onto the ground, and clean up my junk pile under me, my rust scale, and then go do the same thing over on the other side. So hopefully you got something out of this. I got some Geomet coated rotors over on this side. They look great. So let me go get the other side done, and then we'll go take it out and break these puppies in.